Hello, this is an interview with Helen Sims, author and political activist, and she talks from the heart about the Tories' war on the disabled, about suffering from cerebral palsy and other disabilities, and mental health provision in the UK. Helen, I'm going to read from the Goodreads website now, talking about your book, which was out in 2016. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, it says, Taking Steps is an entertaining and inspiring collection of poems, short stories, and articles by the incredibly talented Helen Sims. What can you tell me or tell us about the book?
The book started when I was 14 years old. I was in hospital actually having major surgery at that time. So I thought there's got to be something better. I've got to get something good out of this situation and get something good out of my life and everything that's happening. So I thought that maybe I could put a book together, and basically the book's grown with me since then. Over 20 years I've put it together and edited it and re-edited it and added bits and taken bits away, and then finally I thought in 2015 I've got to do something about this, because I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and I thought, well, if I don't do it now I won't ever try. So we did it. Well, no, actually we tried before and it didn't come together because it obviously wasn't ready, I think. But in 2016 it was finally put together and came out in July of that year. So it was a long slog, but it's worth it. And everybody says it's Helen within a pink cover. So, I hope a lot of my personality and a lot of my life and a lot of my positivity, as well as a lot of the reality of the things we go through, comes through in it.
When you were 14, you had major surgery and you had to learn to walk again. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
And from your experiences, it's made you quite political, hasn't it?
I was an activist. I actually started activism really young. I started when I was 8. So, and I know that a lot of people say that that's really young, but I think I became aware that, I became aware that I had to, I had this thing that I had to do and I had to say, and I've always been conscious that I have to make something positive and make people aware of the differences within life and help them understand disability better. And so it started then, really, and it's kind of grown. I suppose I really stepped it up. Well, I suppose 2010-ish was when I began to take it all online, because obviously the Tories came in then and we had to step it up. Things changed around about that time. So that's when I brought the campaigning online, although I've done it a lot before that in other ways.
And with regards to the disabled, what do you think are the crimes of the Tories since 2010 specifically?
I am angry about the way that we've been treated. I'm angry about the scrounger rhetoric. I'm angry that, there's no grey areas, and the whole assessment situation is, that there aren't any spaces between. They don't judge individuals. It's all like a tick box system. You either fit or you don't, and it's cruelty because it didn't happen. This is ideology. They say that you need to cut this, you need to cut that, you need to cut the other, and we're doing this because the country can't afford it. But really, that's not the case. I mean, people are being, I suppose, duped in a way. And what's been hardest for me isn't so much the financial situation, because I'm quite lucky. I'm married and I have support. Although I do claim DLA, which is soon to be PIP for me, but I don't know when, and that's hanging over me. And I find that difficult. And what's been particularly difficult is the impact of the scrounger rhetoric, etc., on my mental health and my depression. that's become worse as a result of the stress of waiting for this to happen.
Mm.
I'm just angry because there are so many people that are in a far worse situation than me, people with life limiting illnesses and people that are, have been given X amount of time to live, and that they're fighting against this. And I know of people that are relying on food banks when they're on disability benefits. And I've had to call the police out on various welfare checks for people, and people shouldn't be going through this. I won't go into individual stories because obviously that's not my story to tell, but I think that there's an awful lot of suffering that people haven't been told about or accurately told about.
Could you illuminate some of the problems that you see around you with your friends and colleagues with regards sort of disabled people denied benefits with this Tory government?
We had a friend of mine who had, sadly she's passed away now, but at the end of her life, well, towards the end of her life, she was having to fight to raise awareness of her situation. She had a kidney issue, and she was fighting to keep her benefits then. And there are also people that speak to me late at night because they're at the end of their tether. I mean, people that can't have families and they can't afford to put food on the table because their benefits have been sanctioned, be it universal credit or be it PIP. They've lost it or they haven't qualified for it, and really they've got nowhere to turn, or it feels like they haven't got anywhere to turn. And there's been situations. A little while ago there was a person, he won't mind me mentioning this because he knows I'm doing this, but he's an alcoholic, and he's had so many problems in his past. Everybody has problems, but I mean he was in such a state because the DWP had put him through this assessment, and he was really at the end of his tether, and he was really, I mean, suicidal, and it was awful. I mean, it's not the first time. That there's been other situations where somebody's told me, I'm at the end of my tether, I can't manage this, I've got no money, and I've got to a point at 3 o'clock in the morning at one point where he told me he was going to harm himself, and I called the police in his area to go out and do a welfare check on him. And it's a good job I did, let's put it that way. That was all done via Twitter. I haven't met him in person, but let's just say it's a good job I did it. And I had a phone call from the police the next morning or the next day at some time to say he's okay and he's being cared for, and we're going to contact the DWP and his local authority, etc., on his behalf to try and deal with it. I haven't heard from him since, but I know that he's okay. I'm not trying to take credit for that, but that's just some of the things we face. People are really being pushed to the point where they've got nothing, and they're frightened, and I'm frightened, and I'm in a far better position than a lot of people.
Yeah. Do you feel that the Tory government have gone after the disabled because it's just an easy way of making the cuts? I mean, what's your take on it?
My feeling on it is that yes, I feel like we're an easy target because they seem to think that we're not going to fight back. And I think as a result of various economic issues and Brexit and even a lot of things before that, people are so, I'm not generalizing, but in society, a lot of people have got their own problems, and I think to a certain extent, the Tories have used that as a divide and conquer type situation where they think that we're an easy target to victimize us and label us as scrounges and label us as all sorts of things. Some of the right-wing media have put blatant lies out about the level of benefit frauds, etc. 75% of disabled people are faking was one I remember from a certain tabloid. and we know that that's not true. And I think that it's been so damaging for our self-esteem and for mental health and for our lives and our independence and our dignity. And it's horrific. And I wish I was exaggerating, but I'm not.
Yeah. And you're someone that has suffered from cerebral palsy since being a child. Is that right?
Yes, I was born sort of, I say sort of normal, but I was very premature, and it all came out of that. Well, yes, cerebral palsy since birth. Yeah.
And what is it like living with that condition?
It's hard work. Because cerebral palsy impacts on different people in different ways. You know, there's different types of cerebral palsy. For me, it affects my legs. I can't walk or stand unaided. I could walk a little way before, you know, but with wear and tear on the body, the mobility deteriorates. So everything I built up from surgery, you know, from learning to walk before is going or rapidly going because of the strain on my body. For me, it's very tiring. Everything is more tiring than it would be for an able-bodied person. And unfortunately, cerebral palsy isn't the only condition I have. I deal with anxiety, and I suffer from depression, and you know I've got an autoimmune issue going on. So you know, every day is just take it as it comes and do the best I can with it.
And what do you feel is wrong with the government's approach to offering mental health services? Because it's such a big problem in society, isn't it?
Yes, one thing that bothers me quite a lot is that, you know, you hear ministers and various people say, you know, they want to put X amount of million into mental health services for people that are dealing with these issues. But then you look at it and you know, mental health budgets and NHS budgets have been cut all over the place. You know, you can't say one thing and blatantly do the other. Anybody that knows what's happening here will welfare reform. You know, they do impact on mental health themselves. So it's more than one issue. If this government really cared about people's mental health and what people were going through, from my perspective, they'd stop these policies for starters, and they pump more money into the NHS. I know that there are various issues and various, you know, what's the word, cutbacks that supposedly have to be made. But, you know, it's about priorities. And I think the government have their priorities wrong.
Now, you're a Jeremy Corbyn supporter. Do you think that Jeremy Corbyn can be the next Prime Minister of this country?
I hope so. I mean, I nobody knows for sure, but I hope that will happen. I think that it will be good for the country if we can make that happen. And at the end of the day, to be honest, the way I feel and the way thousands and others of people feel, it's the only alternative we've got. Not that I'm saying it's a bad alternative or anything like that, because I'm firmly behind that. But I think we're so desperate now, and a lot of people are suffering so much that we have to throw our weight behind this. We have to throw our weight behind him. I'm not saying he's perfect. I know none of us are saying he's perfect. That's another thing that seems to be coming through a lot. People have been labelled Corbynistas or whatever you want to call us, and they think of it as a cult. But really, it's not like that. We support the policies. We support being fair. We support wanting equality for people. You know, labelling that as a cult or whatever you want to call it, when all we want is compassion that we're not getting at the moment, is ridiculous. We're individual people. You know, we have our own stories and our own lives. Sorry, I'm talking too much, but I think the whole media portrayal of Jeremy Corbyn and his supporters has been very unfair, and I hope that he can be the next prime minister. I'm under no illusions of what he's up against and the obstacles he faces, but I hope that he can do that, because at the end of the day, we need somebody that is going to put compassion and people back into politics, because we don't have that at the moment. Is that
Helen,
okay?
thank you very much. That's excellent.